All right, good morning and good evening, Mr. X's class. Today our video is about the word eventual. I think this is another one kind of like with consequent, where the word on your card is maybe not the most common. The most common, the word family eventually is actually more common. We hear that a lot. We don't hear the word eventual very often, but they're word families. So eventual, what is the part of speech of eventual? Adjective. So eventually is an adverb. How do we know that it's an adverb? By looking at it. The end is ly, yes. Right. And this one is a noun, actually. Anybody know that? Anybody know how we know that's a noun? So I don't know if we've seen this ending before. ity is a noun ending, and a lot of those endings are, so this one in English is like edad in Spanish, which is also a noun ending. So eventual adjective, and so adjective describes a noun or pronoun, and it means happening at the end of a period of time or a process. So usually talking about like results, or maybe an event or a conclusion, something that happens at the end. And but it describes a noun. So like we'd say the eventual result, the eventual conclusion, the eventual something. It needs to describe a noun. So here's an example. So after you attend EP for several years, we hope anyway that the eventual result, right, at the end of that time, are that you learn English well and you receive a diploma. So that's the end that we want to reach, right? And what is the word eventual describing? It's describing another word right here. It's describing another word in the sentence.
The results?
Yeah, it's an adjective. It's describing the results. So the word eventual has to describe something else in the sentence. So here's an example related to English, related to studying, what should I say, related to studying stories or story structures or any kind of literary text. So do we know about foreshadowing? Mm-hmm. We heard about that from last quarter, and every first quarter you hear about foreshadowing. What's foreshadowing? Something that's going to happen in the future. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so we could say foreshadowing can hint at the eventual changes in a character's situation. So the eventual changes, I mean the changes that are going to happen at the end of the book, right? Or at the end of something, often at the end of the book, at the end of the story. So foreshadowing is earlier, but it hints, gives a clue about what's going to happen later, the eventual changes. So what is the word eventual describing in that sentence?
Changes. Okay.
Describing changes. Yeah, it's describing changes, the eventual changes. So it has to describe something else. It is an adjective. Spanish, eventual, although I don't know, I think it's a very common word in Spanish either. I don't know if you've heard it, but, and as I said, word families eventually and eventuality. So eventually means, it's related, right? Because eventually means later, happening later. If you say eventually, right now, school is difficult, but eventually I'll get a good result, right? At the end, later. So similar to this. But it's ly, so it's talking about how something is happening. Happening later. It's like later. Whereas this one, adjective describes a noun, right? Eventual results. Mm-hmm. This is, you don't say eventually results. Eventually, you just say eventually I will do something. It's the action. Describes the action. Eventuality is a noun, and that means an eventuality is something a thing that might happen later, basically. An event that might happen later. That's what that is. Ultimate is a synonym, adjective, also meaning happening at the end. So that's one of the meanings of ultimate. And that's one of your vocabulary words, too. There's some other, right? I don't remember which level, but I know we have it somewhere. One of the meanings of ultimate is this, happening at the end. So are there any questions right now about the word eventual? Okay, if there are any questions, then thank you very much for watching, everybody, and thank you for filming.